Welcome back to Moscone West. My name is Dave Vellante, and we're here at RSAC 2025, live wall-to-wall broadcast from Monday to Thursday. John Furrier is here, Jackie McGuire, John Olczyk, the whole CUBE team. Pleased to welcome Umesh Mahajan, who's the Vice President and General Manager for the Application Networking and Security Division at Broadcom. I think you call it ANS, so we'll be talking about that acronym, and Prashant Gandhi, who's the Head of Products, Application Networking and Security Division. Gents, welcome. Really good to have you. We've been watching Broadcom for many, many years now, and amazing company. You guys are serious people, serious engineers, product focus, love it. Umesh, maybe start off and explain a little bit about the division, what the scope is and what your sort of responsibilities are.
I think once we got acquired, our CEO had a clear vision, right? The VCF private cloud, but then he felt like we have good assets within the company, VMware, for security and load balancing. So this division's focus is build those advanced services and make them work seamlessly with the VCF private cloud. So that's our mission and vision, best of breed security and load balancing products for the VCF private cloud.
You know, it's interesting, the last VM world, I think it was called VMware Explorer, prior to the acquisition. I remember saying, I won't say his name, but the person who was running security, maybe he was security marketing at the time, VMware's a great security story. You don't tell it, you know? Well, okay, and then now you guys have reorganized so that it's a fundamental part of the component. I see here you're really focused on lateral security. We were just talking to somebody and said, look, when the bad guys get in, assume they get in, what do? They traverse laterally in the network. So what is lateral security? Why do customers need it? When we think about zero trust for applications, you've got perimeter security, you got your firewall set up. What is lateral security and why do people need it? You want to, guys?
So I think, perimeter firewalls have been around for like 20, 30 years, right? Apps used to be static, you set it up, the rules in the perimeter and you're good. Now, neither are your apps static, nor do you know who's talking to who, and there are a lot more apps and they get changed all the time by the developers, and a lot of open source is used. So the threat, posture or surface of these apps is quite varied and they can be attacked in many directions. And now AI, ML comes around and everybody is an attack champion, right? Everybody's an expert and they can get in, compromise it. So if perimeter firewall security was really good, no compromises should happen. But compromises are happening in the data center all the time because attackers can get through well-known protocol or you forgot to do something, human errors. And once they get in, they move around laterally and cause a lot of damage. Absolutely, you need lateral security, and perimeter firewall also doesn't have the visibility, because when a packet gets in, going a little technical, when a packet comes in north-south, it multiplies many times, because an application is not a single instance. It's many VMs or many Kubernetes workloads, and then they talk amongst themselves before a response goes back. Perimeter firewall doesn't see all that traffic, so it doesn't see all that, doesn't know what to protect. So if you have to have lateral security, to have the full visibility, then do micro-segmentation, and even threat detection and mitigation if you want to fully protect against ransomware. So other thing is, some CISOs have gone, they bought these tools, perimeter firewall is not good enough. I'll buy an IDS appliance, I'll buy an NTA, NDR from some vendor, and they try to put it together. Easier said than done, because they don't work with the underlying infrastructure properly. How do you pass the information across them? And you just don't have the visibility properly. They're finally coming to that realization, that's not a good model, doesn't work, so we're not going to go down that. And something like vDefend, it's a full stack with all the layers. This is probably a preferred way of doing it, and it provides greater visibility, easy to do, and easier to deploy. So that's the success we are seeing.
Okay, so you guys take care of all that integration and so that the customer doesn't have to worry about it and make mistakes. And vDefend is the product, right, Prashant?
Right. Yeah.
What is so special about vDefend? What's the IP in there? What's the secret sauce? Why is it unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So, vDefend is really purpose-built with software-defined principles for securing VCF private cloud, right? So you want a plug and play environment to deploy security quickly. One of the challenges with private cloud workload, securing them, is that the customers have relied and said, hey, perimeter security is there, why do I need additional security? But as ransomware has been on fire for past many years, that they're realizing that, hey, you need security for these workloads, and vDefend is purpose-built for that. Now, what do you need to fully secure? And that's what Umesh really highlighted. You need visibility. If you can't see, you can't secure. If you want to secure more, you got to see more, right? So visibility is fundamental. How do you get into the host? No one else has access to the host, but we do. We are hypervisor integrated. So that's really a fundamental value that it provides. Then you say, how do you segment workloads, right? That's a second capability that's needed. Then you have to say, how do I protect against threats? And how do I mitigate in case there is a breach? So this entire chain of security capabilities are all built in and are plug and play. So that's really the value.
And segmenting the workloads, obviously to isolate the area that the attackers can get into. And I see this on note here, it's full stack. You had mentioned that,
yes.
Umesh. It's not piece parts that you're putting
and
together.
They call upon each other, right? Sometimes you have security tools which can detect something, but they can't enforce it. So somebody has to take that data, push it in another firewall. By the time they understand and do it, the attacker is long gone and compromised your stuff. So it has to move in real time, all these things. So with an integrated stack, if you detect something, right there the rules get pushed into the lower part of the firewall. So that's a huge difference that our stack has.
This is a really important point you're making, because when ransomware is us on fire, and it literally is, at first the reaction was, okay, they're going to maybe go after the backup corpus and I'm not going to be able to recover, so I have to air gap. Great, maybe I do a local air gap, maybe a virtual air gap, maybe I do a physical air gap. Okay, great, I'm going to be able to recover. And the hacker said, oh, that's fine, but we still have your data, and we're going to release it if you don't pay us. And I think a lot of practitioners and customers went, oops, we have to have a solution like vDefend, like you just described, because we can't allow them to leave with our data. So that's kind of what this is about. There's a lot of diversity in customer environments. There's a lot of heterogeneity. I've listened to Hock Tan very closely last year at VMware Explore about the benefits of homogeneity. I've heard that argument before. I've heard it for many years. I've been in this industry a while. His was quite compelling, and he just talked about the different levels of expertise and cobbling together, whether it was different clouds or different vendors' products. What's your philosophy there? I heard it again from Hock, but I'd love to hear it from you as it relates to zero trust. I wonder if you could sort of help the audience understand that philosophy of the greater the homogeneity, the better control you're going to have, and you're going to argue better TCO, and I have another question about that, but let's start with just the
first
the technical
when
benefits.
It comes to perimeter firewall is a very slow moving animal. They're used to it. You have to get 15 people to sign off before you can insert a firewall rule. It's slow and steady, and that's how it's worked, right? Because nobody can make a mistake in security. But this day and age, you have the developers who want to roll out applications and make changes and update the code all the time, because that's the speed at which, that's the lifeline of companies in this digital era. So how do you match that? So I think what we find is the security staff is always under the gun, because the developers or the DevOps want to move much faster to roll out the applications, and they want to go at the slow pace because that's how typically they've done. But we have to get them moving forward, and that's where we have invested a lot in visibility, analytics, providing them the tool so they can see everything. It becomes really easy for them. Okay, this is what's really going on. This is good connectivity, this is bad connectivity, how should they turn it off? We can give them firewall rule recommendations, and they can easily click on that and decide, okay, I can cut it off, and guide them through all the steps. Because that is the part where they are not clear. They don't know what is secure and what is not secure in this changing data center environment where applications are getting spun up and upgraded all the time. So we can provide them that information so that they can act quickly on it, then it's very beneficial for them. And they have limited staff. I haven't met a customer who said, I have security people sitting idle. So how do we make them very, very productive? Prashant,
and I mean, when we had the internet era, right? Everything was hardware defined.
Right.
Heterogeneity was celebrated, right? But when it came to cloud, as we moved forward from internet to cloud, homogeneity became important because customers could find simplicity. They can find speed with that. And as we enter to AI, massive performance is going to be required, right? So what architecture is needed? You cannot take that hardware-defined architecture of the internet era and try to fit it into a cloud era or the AI era. And that's where a software-defined, scale-out architecture is needed. So our firewall, for example, the lateral security firewall, or you can say east-west firewall, is fully distributed. It can give you today, it can scale up to 9 terabits. Start with 9 gigabits, go to 9 terabits. And we have plans to get to 20 terabits. By a software upgrade, you don't need massive, big boxes coming in, going out and reinstalling. None of that is required, right? So that's really the fundamental difference where homogeneity of the platform is beneficial.
And there's a TCO aspect. I had Drew Nielsen on last year. I presume you know who he is, and he's like the TCO guy. TCO, that's not fair. It's really economic analysis inside of Broadcom's VMware. I know a little bit about TCO. I've done a lot of TCO modeling. I really pushed him hard, and I thought he made a pretty compelling case. And I understand the homogeneity. Sometimes there are trade-offs, but how have customers responded to the TCO argument, the cost argument?
So what we try to do is we're trying to, it's not only the CapEx side, there's the OpEx side.
Sure.
And usually this OpEx side, which is a little hazy and customers don't fully get it, so you have to convince them on the CapEx side of, hey, in our case, first of all, it's software, right? So there's no active standby hardware load security firewall, right? You don't have to buy 2 of everything, just 1, right? And it can be spun up anywhere in time. So you don't need to buy 5 years capacity right now. So you can buy 2 years. You don't want 1 day's capacity, but you can buy 2-3 years, and then once you run out, you can come back and buy more. So it's not like you have stranded assets sitting around. 1 active, 1 standby. This guy told me you'll run out of capacity, so I bought 100 gig. I only needed 10 gig right now. So one is savings out right over there. Second is, in our model, you spin up these security firewalls wherever you want them, in whichever host. So it's not like, hey, you have to do it in this corner, in the service rack, take all the traffic there. So wherever you find the CPU cores available, you spin it up there and you connect the traffic, do it. So a lot of savings from that point. Then we have the cloud operating model, right? Everything is API driven, declarative policy API. So the DevOps people can programmatically put it in their tool chain, roll it out, or reverse it. When the application goes away, the firewall is also removed. So it's not like you are just capacity. It's optimal usage, quick setup, and quick turn down. And with Kubernetes, you absolutely need
you
it.
can
Kubernetes, you absolutely need that.
So, okay, so we've talked about microsegmentation.
And maybe, Dave, one more item, right? The east-west traffic, the lateral traffic, Umesh highlighted, can be 4x to 5x more than the north-south traffic, right? So now you're looking at terabits of traffic. When you try to redirect all that traffic to physical hardware firewall, first of all, it's very complicated, it's hard to troubleshoot, but it's very expensive. You need dozens of boxes to be able to do that, right? And that's where the TCO really comes from. And the hard savings are, we have seen customer examples where if they were to take hardware firewalls versus this vDefend, you can get up to 50% off in TCO.
Okay, so we talked about microsegmentation, check, visibility, check, lateral movement. Okay, great, that's assuming they're getting in, because you have to make that assumption. How do you detect them, but more, I guess maybe as importantly, how do you prevent them from getting in? What are your thoughts there, products, solutions, philosophies?
So we have 2 SKUs, right? One is the basic firewall SKU, right. Distributed firewall, that's our strength. But we have also invested over years on advanced threat protection, right? How do you detect threats? How do you mitigate them? And how do you eventually turn them off? So a huge area of investment for us, because there's that layer, right? There's malicious malware attacks, there's vulnerability attacks. all applications use open source. Nobody writes code without using open source.
Right.
Open source always has vulnerabilities. That's how attackers get in. So what do? So we have the full stack over there, IDS, IPS, distributed, scalable, and it used to scale to 3 terabits. Now, with the upcoming release in a few weeks, we'll get it to scale to 9 terabits. One controller and it's distributed scale. So suddenly, attacks like Log4j which happened, which meant like you have to upgrade. We still have customers who haven't upgraded 3 years later. But they said, if you had something like IDS, IPS, this distributed stuff you have, and if we had bought it and deploy it, we can quickly provision a rule, and it's called virtual patching. We can wait when we are ready to upgrade our software.
Okay.
So a lot of our customers who are using distributed firewall are now moving on to this advanced threat protection SKU of ours, doing IDS, IPS, and then also like for ransomware attacks, NDA, NDR with full AI, because they want to see the full benefits. Because there's so many different attacks in a full attack chain which happens. Lateral movement, first vulnerability, they detect vulnerabilities, which can IDS, IPS, etc. can stop, compromise the host, then move laterally, which our distributed firewall can stop, then finally capture the data, and end up somewhere, and that's where all the NTA, NDR stuff comes in to prevent that.
Is this where because all software based, is this where the Avi acquisition comes in?
No, this is where the last line acquisition comes in.
Last line, okay.
We acquired that company 5 years ago. They had sandboxing and then they had NTA, NDR.
Okay.
So that's totally integrated into our solution.
Explain Avi.
So Avi is a load balancer, but because it's a forward proxy, there are security areas like web application firewall and API security, which needs a proxy because you need to sit in the middle, crack everything. So it's a perfect place for web application firewall and API security. And again, thank you ransomware. WAF was kind of okay, but last 2 years suddenly we see a lot of interest in WAF. Customers suddenly want to deploy it because they want to protect at every layer. They don't know how the attacker is coming in and compromising them. So we are investing a lot of energy in that area, WAF, and then API security. And both these are very pertinent for Kubernetes. Because in Kubernetes workloads also you can get same security attacks, and our RV load balancer is used as an ingress load balancer because it's distributed, agile, and very easy to deploy and turn down, perfect for Kubernetes workloads. So people are using it for WAF and API security, especially in Kubernetes, a lot more APIs get used, right? It's live and die by APIs.
Yeah.
It's a perfect area
it's another
for that.
seam, right?
So that's where the RV angle is coming in for the security side. We are seeing tremendous usage and uptake in WAF and API security with the RV platform that
you look at, CISOs have always talked about defense in depth. Yep. You need multi-layer security, right? But then for every layer, you get a new shiny toy. And then deployment becomes a nightmare. So you never end up deploying, the strategy never gets to execution, right? And so your risk exposure is not changing. And so that's really what vDefend and Avi, fully integrated, make it simple and plug and play so they can turn on the security layers that they need.
Deployment, and it's an integration nightmare. Okay, so you've got another trend. You got the application development team and you got the SecOps team. Developers go fast. They're serving the business, time to value. Security department, the department of no. Right? How are you reconciling that? Can your products help?
Yeah, so again, we with our policy layer, obviously in our architecture, we made it easy for the DevOps people, right? Hey, you can, whether it's your tool chain, CI/CD pipeline, you can provision it, and it's a whole software-defined distributed architecture, and we plug and play with VCF. What I mean plug and play with VCF is for security firewalls, IDS, IPS, you have to get traffic in and out of the engine. It doesn't miraculously show up from somewhere. So we stitch that because we know the VCF stack, Broadcom, VMware stack. Customer doesn't have to say, oh, okay, I'm going to put a VLAN here, take it through this port. A lot of mistakes are made. So we automatically stitch that underneath. So suddenly, a DevOps person can spin up the firewall, anything in any instance, anywhere, The connectivity will be there because we have plug and play with VCF and we get the traffic there. So now they can, turn things on fast and they will work. And you don't, usually the firewall people or security people, because they have to go to the networking people, get the VLAN, move the traffic there, come back, it used to take weeks and months. Now all that
take
thing
that
is gone.
away. Yeah.
So now suddenly they can move much faster and with the visibility, and then we give rule-based access control. So the security people can keep the key infrastructure that these developers won't muck with.
So the RBAC is built in.
RBAC is built in, they can keep that, they don't have to give that access. So they only give the application layer to the DevOps people, so you can muck around. If you screw up, you screw up yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to...
So the security team loves microsegmentation.
Of course.
DevOps team want as code, so we have combined it. We offer microsegmentation as code, so both teams are happy.
Yeah.
Then there are some developers who want it as self-service. So we have combined them to say microsegmentation available as self-service through a service catalog. So at the end of the day now, microsegmentation gets deployed at the speed of application. And so both teams are happy.
Guys, I got to go, but give me the bumper sticker on AI. What's your...
So AI, I think it's cool technology, especially with Gen AI. We were always doing AI and ML.
Yeah, of course.
For our learning, discovering applications, how do you come up with firewall rules. But suddenly Gen AI comes around. So our first use of Gen AI, we've decided, okay, for the most complicated security, right? NDA, NDR, behavioral analytics. Because there you can generate like hundreds of alerts. So how do you crunch them down to a few alerts so that some human can make sense out of them? And then how do you also give the context and say what you should do? So that was our first Gen AI usage, and we released the Copilot last year. Fantastic feedback on it. Customers are headed down that journey, are beginning to deploy it. The second area where we think in AI is important is not a documentation reader. A lot of people are using, Copilot, it'll take you through our document. We'll also have that. But it's triage. Customers tell us, when a problem happens, we get hammered. Must be the firewall which is dropping the packets. We won't provide the answer quickly. No, we are not doing it. Look, we can show you. So that's where the Copilot can tell them. It's dropping it, where exactly doing it, who changed the rule, why did it happen within a few milliseconds. Today it can take them days and weeks to figure out in this complicated network what's going on. So we really want to make that triage simple. Then as you know, VMware is working on VMware Broadcom and private AI. Private AI, we have a partnership with NVIDIA. We're trying to, for enterprises and federal customers, use GPUs and virtualize them and provide that. So, and a lot of those workloads will be Kubernetes workloads. Kubernetes workloads, the software-defined security architecture with full visibility and analytics is perfect, and that's where vDefend can shine.
Very focused story, guys, really, with a really hardcore engineering culture. Thanks so much for coming on theCUBE. Really a pleasure.
Pleasure talking to you.
Prashant, thank you. Yeah. All right, and thank you for watching. Keep it right there. After this short break, we'll be back for more coverage from RSAC 2025. You're watching theCUBE.